We'll have Senator Massicotte.
Chair, thank you for being with us today. Obviously, our self-interest as individuals and as representative of our parliamentarians in Canada, we'd love to believe what you're saying is accurate, but I'm sure you can appreciate this is highly technical, and we're not a very good judge of whether you're right or wrong. But what is very, very good and healthy is this debate. I mean, scientists should be debating and contesting each other constantly. That's what allows the cream to rise to the top, and that's where truth will, and certainty which we'll never get to, but I guess science is an issue of probabilities, and let's hope you cause this audience to be heard and continue your good debate. Having said that, though, as a non-expert, as you can appreciate, I'm sure, we must rely upon the preponderance of evidence and preponderance of scientists as to what their opinion are. And all we can do is encourage the debate and see what the result is when your ideas are contested with other scientists in the world. And having said that, I'm sure you acknowledge that the great majority of scientists don't agree with your conclusions. They probably appreciate some of your data, but they don't agree. And that's the observation we can only make, because we're not able enough to decipher all this stuff. Having said that, what audience have you received? What is the process that you've made public your ideas and what audience are you getting there? Are you making progress? And why is it that you haven't convinced the great majority of other scientists of your views? What's the process, and are you pleased with that process? I'm not sure who wants to make a comment.
One of the issues that you heard about was the water vapor feedback effect, and the water vapor feedback effect in the models gets concentrated in the troposphere over the tropics, and there aren't a lot of papers on that topic in the literature, but there are really two identifiable groups that have been disputing it. A study that I was a co-author on that was published last year used proper statistical methods to look at the data sets and the climate models. This was published in a good atmospheric science journal. And we were able to show that the discrepancy is real between models and observations, that the models significantly overpredict the warming that's going on there. What was interesting in the new batch of climate science emails was to read from some of the people on the other team who, although they won't say it in public, in private, are acknowledging that this is a problem for them, that there is no warming. And one of them even pointed out that, if anything, it's a cooling in that record. And I mentioned one of them described it as living in a fool's paradise, and they used the phrase, it's dangerous, that we're trying to carry on with this impression. So I can completely understand your position as a decision maker. What do you make of the fact that you've got this institution like the IPCC and its various satellite organizations that tells you one thing, and then you keep hearing rumors of other relevant points of view? That's why I would like to shift the discussion a little bit onto getting people to understand more about what the IPCC actually is. I don't think it's as representative of scientific opinion as it's been made out to be. And also, in terms of what you should listen to, at the end of the day, it's not the authority of a scientist or the authority of anyone here. It's really the data. What are you supposed to be measuring? If we were talking about inflation or interest rates, we could say whatever we like, but you can look it up. You can look up the numbers and see for yourself. And I think that's a question that you can put to the scientists that you see. What are you predicting? How do we measure it? And what do those measurements show? Because that's what should be speaking the loudest.
Appreciate that. But even in inflation, there's a constant debate with basket of goods included. Nothing's certain, as you know. In fact, we can get the long argument. How about our own? Every country, our self-interest. We would love to agree with you. In fact, human nature is such. Some of us will quickly agree with you because that's what we'd love to hear. But most countries, including our own scientists, we're spending a lot of money as a country, and many countries are spending a lot of money because of the preponderance of evidence that they heard. And our own Minister of Environment recently said that the scientists within our own government agree with climate change, which is man-made, which is obviously a critical issue. But I don't. What you seem to be saying is, I think you mentioned the word, there's an elitist bias, and there's momentum towards this common agreement. But many, I think the opposite. The bias would be, boy, they'd love to agree with you, and they would love to find what you're doing is right and save all these billions of dollars we're saving. And why is it that even the bureaucrat, which does have a bias, why won't they come out and say, we agree with you, this is all wrong?
Well, I can't speak for individual bureaucrats, but between the academic community and the government science community, there is a lot less freedom for government scientists to speak. I don't put a lot of stock in the idea that someone would say all these experts all agree with a certain point of view when it's basically the person signing their paycheck is telling you that. How much freedom do they have to really speak out? I'm more familiar with the academic world where people have quite a bit more freedom to speak out, and I can just say among my colleagues there's lively discussion, there's a wide range of perspectives, and within people's own area of expertise they still have lots of questions about what's going on.
It's a tough one. I appreciate that. I think many people will dispute it. In fact, I think the most reasoned mind will say, you're right, we're not 100% sure this is occurring. I think nearly nobody is 100% sure. But like many decisions we do in life, we do with high probabilities. I cross the street, when I have to look both sides and think I won't get hit. But maybe I should look 3-4 times. Nothing is certain. And therefore, many people's attitude, and I think the one that resumes best my opinion, the economist basically says we're not 100% sure climate change, but it's going to cost us 1.7 in GDP if we make the measures. If we don't measure it, if we don't do it, it's going to probably cost 5 to 10. Maybe it's 1.7, 1.9% we're wasting, but it's like an insurance policy. So they seem to acknowledge the uncertainty of the event, but it's money well spent, because what if we're wrong? It's a huge impact. You want to make a comment on that reasoning there?
And what if we are wrong the other way? How much it is going to cost us?
It's 1.7.
Also, the 1.7, there have been a lot of studies about what it would cost Canada and other countries. That 1.7 doesn't mean 1.7% of GDP to eliminate the threat of climate change. That's 1.7% of GDP to, say, reach the Kyoto target. And what would that buy you? If the models are right, it only slows the process down by 5%. So if you want to do it on a cost-benefit test, you need to be careful to make the comparison of what it is that you're actually buying with the policy.